Greetings Internet, Didier here, and welcome to one of the deck profile videos that I've been looking forward to reshooting, Conflict Vegeta, rehashed and updated for Set 10 Fan Z. This deck list is actually my most popular deck list on my channel, so I know a lot of you out there are going to be interested in seeing how I've updated this for Fan Z. So without further ado, let's kick this off. So let's scan over the list real quick. As you can see, we've changed a lot of cards from the previous version. Some of it is meta related. Other changes have to do with the experience that I've gained, as well as some Fan Z additions. In fact, one Fan Z addition. You can also check out the sexy awesome sauce proxies. Unleashed. I love that picture on Unleashed. Overall, this has to be my favorite black deck and my favorite deck with Vegeta, so let's get started and talk about the attacks. Now these are the attacks that we're working with. This is a pretty heavily aggressive deck. You can see that we have 21 energies and 11 physical attacks, making a total of 32 attacks. So it's not what I would consider face aggro, which to me face aggro is usually above 40 attacks. It's more of a controlled aggro, but aggro nonetheless. Lots of attacks. So starting off here, we have 3 Galick guns. We got the Awakening foil, starter deck foil. This card's amazing. There are so many unpreventable attacks in this deck that make absolute value use out of Vegeta's added modifiers. Of course, it's very easy to make this card do 8 or 9 life cards. It is especially potent on the level 4 as a game sealer for 9 unstoppable, unpreventable. It also gains an anger, which is doubly good for this deck because you can even gain a level. I've won several games by being at 4 anger, level 3, gaining an anger with Galick gun, and then making it unstoppable, unpreventable for 9. Very, very strong. We got 3 AKs in here, of course. AK is unstoppable and starts out the beginning of the game just hot. You know, it does 6, 5, 7, and 7. Unstoppable, unpreventable. Super good. This deck makes the best use out of AK because not only does it do 6 to start out, but it also quite often, you know, this deck levels. So getting 7 life cards out of an AK is very, very strong. We got 3 Optic Blasts in here, which is a new add, and we added this for several reasons. The main reason we added it is because of 2 endurance. This deck has very little endurance. So I wanted to add more endurance into the deck, and I wanted a high value, high impact attack that I could add in that had some endurance. And this is the one that I chose. Optic Blast. It's 2 for 6, meaning it's 2 for 8, 2 for 7 unpreventable, and 2 for 9. And not only that, but if they do have a Dragon Ball, which a lot of people play, you know, Dragon Balls is a 1 or a 2 of. If they do have a Dragon Ball in play, you're going to be able to steal that Dragon Ball and either draw a card or mill 3. The total damage potential of Optic Blast in this deck is off the charts, off the hizzy. Like we're talking 9 life cards, then mill 3. Crazy good, especially on the level 4. It's unstoppable, so you're going to get that hit effect no matter what. We have 3 Enraged Blast in here, obvious because this deck gains anger and we want the anger gain. Just absolutely, I wish there were better options that we had for anger gain in this deck, but Enraged Blast is just great. I love it, and it would never be dropped out of this deck. Got 3 Quick Blast in here. Good card, decent card. Good when they would open with Time as a Warrior's Tool on that or something like that to make sure it's banished. Good against Namekian decks for banishing their hybrid defenses. But really, it's just in here for Unleashed. Again, I wish I had better options, but this one's solid, and it's a decent attack, and it does decent damage as well, so it's not bad. Blinding Energy move, the greatest card ever in this deck, because you can push ultimate pressure with it. You know, it'll do 5 life cards or 6 life cards or 4 unpreventable for a crit, and then just end combat. It puts tons and tons of pressure to be able to, do a massive life card swing with this card and then just end combat. 3 final flashes in here. Vegeta's Crowning Jewel. The reason Vegeta is so good, the reason I won the Fusion Format Championship, Vegeta's Final Flash is that damn good. It will shut you out of, it will just lock your opponent in certain combats, just being able to do nothing. This deck likes to dip in and out of combat a lot, and the times that you can't dip in and out of combat, you can open Final Flash and then just simply hope that your opponent has a dead hand. So it's kind of a way to lock them out of combat without ending combat. The other big use of this card, obvious use of this card, is being on level 4, making it unstoppable, getting that guaranteed hit effect, dropping down to the 3 and making your opponent pass. This play is so good for 2 reasons. 1, you're doing 7 life cards and then ending combat. And 2, this card gives 2 anger. So you're already well off. If you had 1 or 2 anger on the level 4, you're already pretty much back up to the level 4, even when dropping down a level. It's super good. You win games with this combo easily, and you get a free random discard. So if they're holding like a block against you or something like that they would want to hold and use on the 3, you can peg that from your hand, or any good card really. Sinister Choke starting out the physical attacks here. This card's amazing just because it's unpreventable again. This deck plays 9 attacks that are unpreventable, 3 Sinister Choke, 3 Galick Gun, and 3 AK. So when you're on the level 4, this is another kill card, just like Galick Gun. You're throwing it, it's doing 8 unstoppable, unpreventable. Super, super strong. And it'll even be unstoppable in certain matchups otherwise. But another reason why this card is in this deck is because, of course, there are some times where decks will knock you to 0, and Stage Lock is a serious issue with this deck. So we did want to play some physical attacks, not too many, because we don't want to spread our damage type too much, because then your opponent is going to make full use out of their blocks. Although it's important to note that it's kind of okay that we do that, because the ultimate goal of this deck is to push to the 4. So spreading our attacks a little bit is okay. You're not always going to be on 4, but truly it's in here because Stage Lock is a thing, and you want to be able to push out damage even if stage locked. 3 Android Headbutts is a new ad. I actually talked about this on my budget build video where I said I was thinking that I was even going to play this card in this deck regardless, and it rang true because I added in 3 copies into the deck after that video, and they've never left the deck since then. And this card is just amazing. It does 4 life cards, super strong, straight for the life, gives you an anger and has the potential for anger lower. And this deck is kind of weak to MPPV. Its goal against MPPV is just to kill them faster than they can MPPV. That's quite literally the goal of the deck. And so you have crits, and you have this single card and Heroic Dashing Punch against the anger victory. So that's really all you have. So the 1 anger swing is sometimes really nice. This card can actually be a 3 anger swing because you can lower an anger with the immediate, crit with it, and then activate the hit crit if you so need. It's another way, another good card against Dragon Ball decks, and another hit effect that's guaranteed on the level 4. Sometimes against Dragon Ball decks, you really need to steal 2 Dragon Balls in a single action, and this card can do that. Heroic Dashing Punch is crazy, crazy good in this deck. Open up with it for that free anger and skip and then level. Open up with it against anger decks just to lock them out. Open up with it on level 3 against anger decks and then just say, if you don't have 2 physical blocks, you're not gaining anger this combat. Just so many uses of this card. The combat control. This deck is all about combat control, and this is the quintessential combat control card. If you play Ascension, you understand how powerful this card is. And then we got 3 I'll Dig Your Graves. Amazing card. And this card is in here for one reason and one reason only, and that is leveling. No, it is not in here for unpreventable damage. Unpreventable damage is nice. It's super good. However, we just went over that we play 9 attacks that are already unpreventable. So this card is not in here for unpreventable damage. It's not. It is in here to level. And there are a lot of times where you're not going to get the unleash that you need. Sometimes you'll be facing strong anger lower decks and etc., etc. It's going to be hard to level sometimes. And I'll Dig Your Grave is just that extra blanketing that you need to make sure that you push up to the upper levels of Vegeta. My favorite combo with this card, and I talked about this in my previous video, my favorite combo is to open up I'll Dig Your Grave on the level 3. If they don't have 2 blocks in their hand, 2 physical blocks, you're gonna just bounce up to 4, and then just end combat. It is so strong to do that. So strong. And as I've said in previous videos, do not be afraid to level up your opponent. Don't be afraid. I don't care. Brawly, I don't care. Aggro decks, I don't care. Even other anger decks. Yeah, I just said anger was a bad matchup. Even anger decks. The only anger deck that I would not bump up is Ascension, because they get anger from when you end combat, and it's difficult for you to control the game if they're constantly gaining anger, even if you control combat. And that's the point. You control combat with this deck. So against a Retribution deck, a Retribution anger deck, it is okay. You can bounce up because you will kill them faster than they can anger out. Trust me. And we have a single Crushing Beam in here. The reason I added this in here is because, again, I wanted more endurance. It's a little bit of a hefty cost, and it has a little bit of a weird interaction. If you use it on the level 3 and it's your first attack that's stopped, it'll actually still shuffle into your life deck, which I do not like. However, in the earlier levels, like if you get stuck on 1, this could be a really nice attack that you could cycle over and over again. And again, it's mainly in here for the endurance. It's a pretty powerful attack too. I mean, Unstoppable 9, shuffle into your life deck is super good. But again, mainly it's in here for the endurance and the reusability. This deck, simply put, pushes out more damage than any other deck in the game, and quickly. So having that extra Crushing Beam shuffle in your deck, clutch late game, can win you the game. And that's all for your attacks, guys. So now let's go over the events and blocks. So these are the events and blocks that we're working with. We actually run 11 blocks and 8 events. So you can see a big change from my first version of this deck is I reduced the number of blocks, and that was by choice. I think I played a full suite of 6 and 6 physical and energy, so I played 13 blocks. I dropped it down to 11. And the main reason I did that was because I found in certain games, especially late game, I would draw into too many blocks. I'd be trying to push out the last damage that I needed to seal the game. I'd be level 3 or 4, and I would just draw hands of blocks, and I wasn't able to do the damage that I needed. I wasn't drawing the non-styled attacks that I needed to draw. So I reduced the number of blocks by 2, and I took out 2 energy blocks. As you can see, I run a single copy of Swipe. And that is simply because I run 6 physicals because this deck is susceptible to stage lock, and I don't want to be stage locked. I want to be able to push out damage. And against energy matchups, I can afford to go just a little bit lighter on the energy blocks because I know that chances are I'm going to be doing more damage than them. In the energy matchup, it is literally a damage race. It is a race to the end of the game. And this deck, no deck races damage as fast as this deck because it can enter and then do a bunch of damage and then just end combat before your opponent even gets an action. So that happens a lot, and so in an energy matchup, I can go just a little bit lighter on the blocks. I still want the blocks, and hence why I play the single copy of Swipe in here. I didn't want to go down to only 3 energy blocks because, energy web is a thing, and some people play it out there. But, I didn't want to go too light. So obviously there's Time as a Warrior's Tool. Swipe is great for endurance and banishing. The anger from Black Resistance and endurance is wonderful. Knee Catch is pretty much the best physical block in the game. Close to it, pretty much the best. And then Delay is so good in this meta. So many personalities have attacks on their personality powers, and just delaying their attack is amazing. We run 2 Sphere in here, no confrontation. And the reason for no confrontation is slow. Confrontation is when you want to kind of last out to the end of the combat. Like, you're investing with confrontation. When you confrontation, you're saying, I'm going to take out your best card, and I'm going to get full value out of my hand, and then outpace you this combat. That's what confrontation does for you. This deck does not want to do that. This deck wants to get in combat, hit some pop shots, and get out. All right, so confrontation just messes up your sequencing. You want to enter and gain anger. You want to enter and do damage, do AK, do choke. You do not want to enter in Confrontation. It's such a slow play. So I would definitely add a third sphere before I added a single Confrontation in this deck. We got 3 sexy foil commands. The reason that Conflict Vegeta is the best Vegeta is right in front of you. Well, one of the reasons. There's 2 reasons. This is one. The passive anger gain is spectacular. So good. So good. And people ask me why I run Conflict. I run Conflict for 3 reasons. 1, because it lowers the threshold for crits, and sometimes you need those crits. Against Ox King, against Dragon Ball decks, you'll only do 4 life cards. This deck is a crit machine. The second reason is because of the 6 stages. Again, this deck is susceptible to stage lock, and it needs those guaranteed stages. The anger control is nice too. But the third reason is because Command is a 3 anger card. And let me tell you how many times that I will enter open Enraged Blast, my opponent will do something, he's not going to gain 3 anger. There's no way he can gain 3 anger in a single action. He's a black deck. Well, I command, Mastery Command for 3 anger and level and then end combat. It is so good. Amazing. 3 Unleashed is obvious in here. This is a level hopping build. So Unleashed is just makes sense. The great thing about Unleashed in this deck is Unleashed is never a dead card. In the least, Unleashed can allow you to end combat. If you're level 4 and you draw Unleashed, throw your hand of attacks or throw 1 or 2 attacks, Unleash down to level 3 to end combat. It's so good. So no matter what, Unleash is a good draw at any point in the game. It takes the best card in the game and makes it even better. So that's it for the events and blocks, guys. So now let's go over the planning cards. These are the planning cards that we're working with. Not that many planning. We got 9 planning in the deck. And if you want to consider Ball 7 even a planning card because it is usable in combat. So if you draw it on the defense, it's great. In here for another combat ender. This deck is all about combat control. And it ends combat. This deck plays, I think, 8 combat enders, not including bouncing up and down between level 3 and 4. Because you could consider Final Flash, I'll Dig Your Grave, Unleash, and really any anger card as almost a pseudo combat ender as well. But hard combat enders, this deck plays 8 of them. So super good. Obvious add here. I actually did play Ball 2 in here for a while. But I found, because again, this deck's bad against anger, but I found that I didn't like the extra planning, and I found myself drawing it early and not liking it, and it just wasn't the best in every matchup, and I wanted the consistency of just pounding my opponent's face. This deck could use Ball 2, and in certain metas, I might add it in, but overall, just against MPPV, beat their face and kill them before they MPPV, simply put. 2 VTP in here is obvious. Main reason this is in here, grab Final Flash on level 4, grab AK at any point in the game, grab Unleashed, grab those high value cards from your discard pile that you need. This deck is aggressive, but it doesn't matter if you only enter with a 3-card hand. So I will enter combat with the turn I drop VTP, I will do that. I will enter combat with a 3-card hand. Because if I'm just going to end combat, then it doesn't matter. That's the beauty of VTP in this deck. It's so strong. This is the only Fanzy ad, Black Face Off. And this card, I read it, and then I thought about it, and then I read it again, and then I thought about it more, and I realized that this card is the card that this deck was missing. This card is beautiful in this deck. So I said there were 2 reasons why Black Conflict Vegeta is the best Vegeta. I'm upping that to 3 because of this card. This card is so spectacular. It fits in exactly with what this deck wants to do. When entering combat, you gain an anger. You gain an anger when entering combat. For your combos and for your sequencing, there is no better play than gaining an anger when entering combat with this deck. You can be at 2 anger, draw into Enraged Blast and Face Off, drop Face Off, enter, pop Face Off to 3 anger, open Enraged Blast to level to 3 to end combat. Such a strong play. Okay? So many plays are good with this card. It shuts off events and allies. Now, granted, there are a lot of events in this deck. Not too many, but there are Unleashed, which is significant. So you shut off your own Unleashed. So you have to be careful when you use it. However, there are some matchups that play way more events than you do. So against Namekian decks or any other control deck, this card is so good. The other thing, it shuts off allies. One of the big things against this deck, one of the big counters to this deck is Ox King. And Ox King sucks when they get into play. We have the crits. We have the crits for Ox King. But it especially sucks when they have when they're tag team and they'll just tag team Ox King first turn and keep Ox King in play for the remainder of the game. So face off goes a long way for you to just be able to get that one good combat in, turn your opponent's deck over, and then be like, oh, that's fine. You can keep Ox King in play. The other use of this card, the uses just keep going on. The other use of this card is when it's discarded from your hand, you gain 5 stages. Hello, people. That means with your mastery, you can either gain 11 stages, you can split it up 6 and 5 if this deck doesn't play allies, but you could. Or just go to full on your main personality. Great. Gain 10 stages sounds good to me. Or you can get 5 stages in an anger. 5 stages in an anger. So freaking good. This card has multiple uses. It is beautiful. I'm talking so much about it because it's just that damn good. 3 copies, never leaving this deck. And then we have 3 black power-ups. Great card. Just again for combat control, the stages are great. Again, stage lock is a problem for this deck. But look at how much stage gain we got. We got power up, we got face off, and we have the physical attacks to fall back on as well, and the mastery to fall back on. We have leveling. There's plenty of mitigation to stage beat that this deck has. One thing that I want to note is that you don't see in here is Black Declaration, and I'm a little bit worried about that. There's only one card in the game that I care about with Black Declaration, because I don't care about orange decks with Hiding Drill. If I see Hiding Drill, I'm just going to camp 1. I don't care about orange decks with Steady Drill. Steady Drill, I'll just open up AK. Or I'll just get to level 4 and just plow through everything. I don't care about a lot of things. But one thing that I truly care about is Visage. Villainous Visage. Alright, and this deck actually doesn't play an answer to Visage. Okay? So that is a problem, and I've ran into that twice. I had to plow into it, and you just kind of have to plow into it. I did it once, and I lost, and I did it once again, and I won that game. So I know it's possible for you to plow through Visage, and I really don't want to play such a dead card that is Declaration, because it truly is a dead card. I hated drawing it a lot. I hated drawing it. And that's why I dropped it. It has 2 endurance. It's good. It may work its way back into this deck. But I wanted to just point that out just to know that, Conflict Vegeta players out there, this deck doesn't play an answer to Visage right now, and I understand that. It may prove to be too big of an issue. There aren't too many decks that play Visage. It's villains only, and it primarily control decks play it. It's fallen off in flavor a lot, so we'll see how it goes. Declaration may go back in here for Visage, though. That's it for the planning cards, guys, so now let's go over the strategy. All right, so now let's go over the strategy section of how you're going to win with this deck, Conflict Vegeta. There are many different ways you can play this deck. There are many different avenues that this deck has to victory. A couple ways that you can do, a couple things you can do, is that you can camp 1. This deck can camp 1. It dedicates a lot of cards in it to leveling. But there are some matchups that you want to camp 1, namely Orange. Orange is a big one because of Hiding Drill. Hiding Drill will shut you down. It will. It won't shut you down, but it'll especially hurt on level 2. If you start leveling and you hit 2 and they have Hiding Drill in play and you can't find yourself getting to level 3, you're going to be hurting because your attacks are only going to be doing like 3 or 4 life cards. And sure, it's unpreventable damage, but 3 or 4 life cards is just plenty too low, just way too low. So sticking on the level 1 and making their Hiding Drill useless and just triggering 1 power to banish their Hiding Drill and then safely leveling is a much better play. But overall, this deck tries to level. But the big thing that you have to keep in mind is this deck, you just want to play on the hands that you draw. You don't want to limit yourself. And certainly, if you draw a super gas hand, like if you draw AK, Choke, and Galick Gun, or some combination thereof of like 2 of these, Like if I draw Choke AK or double Galick gun or Sinister Choke Galick gun or something like that, if I draw a gas hand and I have something to support it, like a block or like a sphere or something like that, I'm entering combat, because the goal of this deck is to put in damage when it can. And it can do it early game as well. You don't play passively with this deck. This deck goes aggro as soon as it draws a hand that it likes. Of course, this deck wants to level, but it can just kill the opponent on level 1, the +2 life cards. So you're going to level. So the other way you can kind of play is if you draw leveling cards. Obviously, if I draw Dig or Unleashed early, usually I'll enter, especially if it's Unleashed. Because with Dig, I kind of have to think about the matchup. I also have to consider whether or not they're going to have a block in their hand. But if I draw Unleashed, if they don't have Sphere, I'm leveling, and I'm setting myself off to win the game quickly. Especially because the level 2 gains an anger. You'll start pushing up to the level 3 faster than they even know it, than they even understand. That 1 anger per combat really adds up. So if I draw Dig or Unleashed early, I find myself entering a lot. Continuing on, other hands, if you draw command, like anger hands I will enter on as well. If I want to level and I'm not facing orange, if I draw a great anger hand like Final Flash, Enraged Blast, I'll throw Galick Gun in the mix as well. This is an anger card and it's a gas card as well. HDP 2, these cards are great just to level up. So, if you're not drawing a hand to absolutely decimate the opponent like Chokes and AKs, you want to make sure you have a level in your hand. Those are kind of like the two situations. The two situations that you want to go aggressive. Do I have a level, or do I want to push out damage? Or do I want to just get a pop shot and then end combat? So that's kind of the 3 ways you can play this deck. So anger cards are always great to enter combat on, especially if I have enough anger to level. Super good. So you'll find that you're level 3 very quickly with this deck. The level hopping is so strong. Once you're level 3, you're going to go hyper aggressive. I have just entered combat on such suboptimal hands and just tore my opponent's life deck apart. You enter open Choke for 8 unpreventable. If they block it, okay, stays in play to be used again. Choke for 8 unpreventable. It's free card advantage. It's like double the card advantage because you're getting to use the attack again and you're getting +3 life cards on everything. One thing I do want to note against this deck is, sometimes you're playing black or you're playing red and they have tandem attack or tandem blast. I think it's tandem blast and haunting. So you do have to be careful. That does shut down pretty much your whole deck. You just kind of have to play around them and go aggressive when you can. That's the key. Get in, get the damage in, and then get out of combat. That's what this deck does. Once you're level 4, you have so many options. They have to go aggressive on you when you're level 4. And know that. Know that they have to go aggressive on you. And use that to your advantage. Go aggressive on them and just end the game. Seal the game out quickly. You draw a Choke, you draw a Galick Gun, go in and destroy their life deck. And of course, the greatest combo, we talked about this earlier, the greatest combo on this level is using Final Flash, de-leveling till the level 3. Do not be afraid. And I understand you're losing the Unstoppable. I understand that. And it's a little scary sometimes, but it gives you 2 anger. Don't be afraid to do that. The end combat is so strong. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's pretty much the avenues you want to play. Like I said, you draw a gas hand, go for it. You draw a leveling hand, go for it. You draw a Dig or a Dig or Unleashed, go for it. And in orange matchups, don't be afraid to stick on level 1 until you make sure that those hiding drills are out of the game. Thanks for watching, guys, on this updated deck profile video. This is definitely my favorite Vegeta deck and my favorite black deck. So, of course, I have to rep and have the Umbreon Teen Eevee sleeves. Please don't hesitate to hit that like button if you like this video. And as always, turn your dial to Random Number Gaming. And if you want to see more deck profile videos, comment in the comment section below. What decks do you want to see me make? What decks do you want me to release? We're going to come out with tons more Fantasy content, tons more Fantasy deck profile videos. And I have a lot of Fusion decks that I'm developing now. We got the Fusion WMAT. So be sure, you better believe that you're going to be seeing a lot of Fusion decks, more Fusion decks showing up on the channel. See you next time.